before we dive into this case, make sure you hit subscribe because the next story might reveal what they never wanted the public to know. The night was quiet inside the J. Edgar Hoover building, the kind of silence only federal offices have after midnight. Cold, humming with fluorescent lights, the air thick with secrets. FBI Special Agent Michael Cade sat at his desk, eyes locked on an evidence board filled with crime scene photos and timelines. 4 states, 6 victims, no connection. At least that's what they told him. But Cade didn't believe in coincidences. Not when every victim's file had one strange thing in common: a missing report from the Bureau's digital archive. He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. The investigation, labeled Operation Silent River, had been going for months. The official narrative was simple: random homicides by a transient drifter. But the deeper he went, the more the case fought back. Files went missing, witnesses changed their statements, and 2 days ago, his partner, Agent Claire Donovan, had requested a sudden transfer out of D.C. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Then came the internal memo. Case reassigned, Agent Cade, stand down until further notice. That was when he knew. Someone inside the Bureau wanted this case buried. By dawn, Cade was driving south toward Quantico, coffee in one hand, the file in the passenger seat. The sky was gray, rain threatening to fall, Virginia's early morning mist clinging to the trees. He couldn't shake the feeling that every turn of the road was being watched. He called his old field contact, Detective Alan Cross, now with the Virginia State Police. "Alan, I need a favor," Cade said, voice low. "I'm looking for case files connected to a series of unsolveds. Check the archive for the name Silent River. See what's been pulled in the last 6 months." "Silent River?" Cross paused. "Cade, that case was federal. You're not supposed to be—" "I know," Cade cut in. "Just check it." The line went quiet. Then, "Give me 2 hours." When he reached the Quantico Records facility, the clerk wouldn't even look at him. "Restricted access," she said, monotone. "Authorization code required." Cade flashed his badge. "This is my authorization." The clerk hesitated, then typed something into her system. Her expression shifted, confusion, then fear. "I'm sorry, Agent Cade. It says here you were suspended." He froze. "That's not possible." She turned the monitor slightly. There it was, stamped in red, suspended, internal review. Issued less than an hour ago. Cade stepped back, heart pounding. Someone had just erased him from his own investigation. Back in his car, he checked his email. His bureau account was locked. Every folder, every file, gone. Except for one, an encrypted message with no sender. It contained a single line. "You're looking for the truth. Start with the night of May 19, Building 4, Level 3. That was the Forensic Analysis Division, closed for renovation since spring. He knew it was a trap, but he also knew he had no choice. By nightfall, Cade parked a few blocks from the Bureau's restricted wing. The corridors were dark, half the lights off, a faint hum echoing through the vents. He moved quietly, hand brushing the cold wall as he passed each door. The keypad for Level 3 was dead, but the door wasn't locked. Inside, the air smelled of dust and disinfectant. Rows of filing cabinets stood under flickering lights. And there, at the far end, a single desk lamp glowed over a box labeled Silent River, Containment. He opened it. Inside were photographs. Not just crime scene photos, surveillance shots of Bureau agents, meetings in parking lots, exchange of evidence. And at the center of every photo was one familiar face, Assistant Director Raymond Heller, Cade's superior. Heller had personally signed the order to shut down the investigation. Cade's pulse surged. He scanned deeper through the documents, one marked for internal eyes only. It detailed payments,
off-record tasking, falsified witness reports. Someone had been covering up the killings and using Bureau resources to do it. Then, a sudden creak echoed through the hallway. Cade turned, flashlight beams slicing through the dark, and saw a shadow move near the doorway. He reached for his weapon. "Who's there?" No answer, just footsteps fading into the distance. He rushed out, scanning the corridor. Empty. But as he turned back to the file room, he froze. The box on the desk was gone. When he returned to his car, a chill ran through him. His windshield wipers brushed away a slip of paper stuck under the blade. Scrawled across it were 5 words, written in ink still fresh from the rain. "They're watching you, Agent Cade." He stared out at the night, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement. In all his years with the Bureau, he'd learned to separate truth from noise. But this time, the noise was coming from inside the walls he trusted most. And as thunder cracked over the Potomac, he realized something that made his stomach drop. The only people who could have placed that note were from inside the FBI.
The rain hadn't stopped since that night. By morning, Washington, D.C. looked washed out, gray skies hanging low over the city like a secret too heavy to keep. FBI agent Michael Cade hadn't slept. The note on his windshield still burned in his mind. "They're watching you, Agent Cade." He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other clutching the photos he'd managed to grab before the evidence box vanished. Every image tied back to Assistant Director Raymond Heller, the man now sitting on top of a federal cover-up. But the real question wasn't why Heller buried the case. It was who he was protecting. There was one lead left, a woman named Sophie Lang, a forensics analyst who had worked on the original Silent River case before it was shut down. She'd vanished from Bureau records a week after the final report. Cade found her name hidden inside an old personnel database, listed as on extended leave. No forwarding address, no contact information. But the system timestamp showed something odd. Her file had been accessed only 3 days ago by someone from Internal Affairs. He tracked the IP address. It led to a small motel outside Alexandria, Virginia. That's where Cade went. The motel was the kind that existed just outside of civilization. Neon flickering, cracked parking lot, a single office light glowing through the rain. He stepped inside, showing his badge to the sleepy clerk. Looking for a guest, named Sophie Lang, checked in last week. The clerk frowned. Lang? Yeah. Room 117, but she paid cash. Haven't seen her since Monday. Cade's pulse quickened. Monday was the day his clearance got revoked. He walked down the narrow hallway. Each step echoed under dim, buzzing lights. He stopped at room 117. The door was slightly open. He pushed it gently.
Inside, the room was still. The smell of stale coffee and disinfectant filled the air. Papers were scattered across the floor. Reports, maps, photos. On the bed, a laptop sat open, its screen black. Then he saw it, a single FBI evidence tag taped to the wall. The number on it read SR017B. That was from the Silent River case. Sophie Lang hadn't been hiding. She'd been investigating it on her own. Cade powered up the laptop. It asked for a password. He tried Silent River. No luck. Quantico. Heller. Nothing. Then he noticed a post-it note stuck to the edge of the desk. On it, one word. Truth. He typed it. The screen unlocked. A series of video files appeared, each labeled by date. The most recent one, May 19, Building 4, Level 3. He clicked it. The footage showed security camera angles, bureau corridors, labs, offices. Then a figure entered the frame, Assistant Director Heller. He was talking to someone off screen, voice low but clear. The case dies here. If Lang talks, she disappears. If Cade keeps digging, He'll be next. Cade froze. The video was time-stamped just hours before his suspension. He grabbed his phone, snapping pictures of the screen. But before he could copy the files, a faint creak came from behind him. He turned. The hallway was dark, but the door now stood fully open. "Agent Tate." The voice was soft, shaking. From the shadows stepped a woman in a hoodie, pale, exhausted, eyes darting toward the window. "Sophie Lang." She nodded, trembling. "They found me 2 days ago. I ran." "Who?"
"The Bureau. Not all of them. Just the ones who answer to Heller. I caught something I wasn't supposed to see." Cade kept his voice calm. "Tell me everything." Lang swallowed hard. "The victims from Silent River, they weren't random. They were informants. Every one of them tied to an internal corruption probe. Missing funds, falsified operations, even staged arrests. Someone inside was cleaning up loose ends. And Heller?" She nodded. "He's protecting someone higher, someone with clearance above his own." Before Cade could respond, headlights cut across the window, a car pulling into the lot. Then another, and another. Sophie's face went pale. "They found us." Cade grabbed the laptop, shoved it into his bag. "Go out the back." They moved fast, slipping out the bathroom window, just as the front door burst open. Heavy boots thundered in, gunmetal flashes, voices barking orders. "FBI, step away from the computer." Cade and Sophie ran into the rain, their shoes splashing through puddles as sirens wailed somewhere distant. They ducked behind a row of dumpsters, hearts pounding. From their hiding spot, Cade watched black SUVs flood the parking lot. Agents swarmed the motel, radios crackling with coded chatter. He caught one phrase that made his blood run cold. "Confirm visual on both targets. Shoot on command." They weren't there to arrest them. They were there to erase them.
Minutes later, they were gone, sprinting through an alley toward Cade's car. He drove without headlights until they hit the main road. Neither spoke for several miles. Finally, Sophie broke the silence. "What are you going to do now?" Cade gripped the wheel. "I still have the video. That's enough to expose them." She shook her head. "You think one video will stop them? Heller's just a puppet. You don't know how high this goes." Cade's jaw tightened. "Then we'll find out." They reached an abandoned service tunnel beneath Arlington, a place Cade once used for surveillance training. It was quiet, for now. He opened his laptop, pulling up the files again. But as soon as he tried to export them, the screen flickered, then went black. A message appeared. "This system has been remotely disabled by federal command." Sophie stared in disbelief. "They're inside your network." Cade closed the laptop slowly. The evidence was gone, but the truth wasn't. He looked up at the dark tunnel ahead, one that seemed to stretch on forever. "They can delete files, but they can't delete what I saw." Thunder rumbled above, echoing through the concrete, and somewhere out there, someone in a tailored suit was already signing the next order. "Locate Cade, eliminate exposure." The storm over Washington had finally passed, but the city didn't feel cleaner. It felt erased. Every trace of Agent Michael Cade's investigation, the Silent River files, the video, even Sophie Lang's personnel records had vanished overnight. It was as if neither of them had ever existed in the Bureau's system. And that was the point. They'd been hiding in a half-abandoned farmhouse outside Culpeper, Virginia, for 2 days. No phone signals, no traceable networks, just silence. The kind that made every creak sound like a footstep. Sophie sat by the window, scanning the horizon with binoculars. Cade paced, restless. "They won't stop," she whispered. "You saw how fast they wiped your files. They're pulling the same strings they used on me." Cade stopped. "There's one thing they can't wipe, the field logs." She frowned. "You think they didn't scrub those?" "Not all. Bureau policy requires offline backups in Quantico's evidence vault. These Silent River originals might still exist if we can get in before Heller knows we're coming." He looked at her,
eyes burning with a mix of resolve and exhaustion. "You ready to finish this?" Sophie hesitated, then nodded. "Let's bring their house down." They drove under darkness, avoiding cameras and GPS. Cade used a stolen clearance card from an old contact, slipping through the Quantico South Gate just before midnight. Inside, the complex was silent. Vast corridors lined with framed photos of fallen agents and polished floors that reflected the glow of security lights. Sophie whispered, "You sure you remember the vault layout?" Cade smirked faintly. "You don't forget the place where truth gets buried." They descended 2 levels down. The steel door to evidence room B4 loomed ahead, sealed by a digital lock. Cade entered his old credentials. Denied.
Then, from his pocket, he pulled a small data drive. Last favor from a friend in cybercrimes. He plugged it in. The lock beeped once, then turned green. Inside the vault, rows of cold metal shelves stretched endlessly, each tagged with years, divisions, and clearance levels. Cade scanned the labels until he found it. Silent River, Internal Ops 094721. He reached for the box. Empty. Just a single flash drive lay inside, labeled SR Echo. Cade connected the drive to his tablet. A video opened automatically. Assistant Director Heller, sitting in a private office, staring directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, Agent Cade, congratulations. You're exactly where we wanted you." Sophie's breath caught. "You think you're the only one who saw the rot in this place? You're wrong. You're just the distraction. Every second you've been running, we've been cleaning house. And when this video ends, so does your career, and hers." The screen cut to black. Then the alarms blared. "Move!" Cade yelled, grabbing Sophie's arm as red lights flooded the corridor. A loudspeaker boomed through the building. "Unauthorized access detected. Section B lockdown in progress." They sprinted through the maze of corridors as steel doors slammed shut one after another. Cade shot a glance over his shoulder. Security teams in tactical gear were closing in. He turned down a maintenance tunnel and smashed an emergency panel. A vent shaft opened, narrow but passable. "Go," he said. Sophie crawled in first, pulling the flash drive from his hand. "Even if we don't make it, someone will see this."
He forced a smile. "We're both walking out." But he didn't believe it. They emerged in a side parking lot. SUV headlights sliced through the fog as agents fanned out, shouting commands. Gunfire cracked the night air. Warning shots, not yet lethal. Cade and Sophie ducked behind a concrete barrier. "We can't outrun them forever," Sophie cried. Cade's eyes darted to a burning security light flickering above. "Maybe we don't have to." He pulled his phone, the one he'd stripped of tracking chips, and began typing rapidly. "What are you doing?" "I'm sending everything to someone who can't be silenced." He hit send. Transmission complete. Then suddenly, headlights from the main road, a black car screeched to a stop. The window rolled down, a woman's voice called out, "Agent Cade, get in, now!" It was Agent Laura Benton from the Department of Justice's Internal Oversight Unit, one of the few Cade trusted. They piled in, breathless. Benton gunned the engine, speeding away as sirens wailed behind them. By morning, the story had broken. Anonymous documents had hit multiple news outlets. Audio recordings, redacted memos, and surveillance clips tying Assistant Director Heller to a ring of internal evidence tampering and political obstruction.
Cable networks buzzed with headlines. FBI under fire. Insider whistleblower exposes cover-up. Silent River, the case the Bureau tried to erase. But for Cade, there was no relief. He sat in a safe house, watching the chaos unfold. Sophie stood beside him, exhausted. She said softly, "You did it." He shook his head. "No, we just opened the first door." That night, a knock came at the door. Cade opened it to find Agent Benton, alone. She stepped inside, face unreadable. "They arrested Heller, but it's not over. Someone inside wants this buried again." He frowned. "Who?"
She met his gaze, and in that instant, Cade knew.
You, he whispered. Her silence was answer enough. A gun clicked beneath her coat. You aren't supposed to go this far, Michael. Orders came from above. Walk away, and maybe you live long enough to forget. Cade took a slow breath. You ever look in the mirror, Benton? Because I have. And the face staring back isn't a cop anymore. He moved first, disarming her in one fluid motion. The gun hit the floor. Benton froze. Cade stepped back, lowering the weapon. Tell your bosses I'm done running, but they should start. He turned and walked out into the night. Weeks later, Heller's case dominated the news, but no one mentioned the deeper layers. No one mentioned the higher names. Cade disappeared from public record, living off-grid somewhere in Montana. Sophie stayed in touch only through coded messages. The Bureau issued no official comment, but in a quiet DC office, a new file was opened, labeled Project Mirror. Status: active. They say the truth sets you free, but in America, the truth can get you erased. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Subscribe now, because the next case might be darker than this one.